Hey guys, welcome back to the Starting to Scale podcast. Very, very excited. I've not got one guest, I've not got two guests, I've got three guests on the show today. Very inspirational women, all looking to pave the way for others and help change how females get into tech and lead teams and entrepreneurs. And yeah, it's going to be a really insightful show. So I hope you guys enjoy it. So welcome to the show, Semra, Iffat, and Dieuwke. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, really excited to have all you guys on the show. It's going to be an interesting one for me to lead this one with three of you on. Like I say, really excited to get your insight on all the topics we've got to discuss. And I think all these topics are important to discuss as well and get out there and make sure, you know, we're being vocal and being seen and having that visibility, which I know we'll touch on in a little bit. But to begin with, let's get your guys' backgrounds. So Semra, if we could start with you, could you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you're up to at the moment and your background, please?
I'm Semra Çelebi from Amsterdam. I'm working for the city of Amsterdam now for almost 13 years. The longest period was at the Department of Diversity and Inclusion as a policy advisor. And then I made the switch to economical affairs at the city of Amsterdam, where I'm now almost 2 years, the project female lead, female entrepreneurship and more women in technology.
Amazing. And just touching on that then, what does that involve for you then in terms of that, you know, leading the way with female leadership?
So I'm basically responsible for creating a conducive ecosystem for women to thrive, to get more women into tech on the one hand, and to also stimulate more women to take steps into building innovative startups for themselves, so that we have more equality in that space.
Yeah, and already there's so much we could talk about there, but before we go into that, yes. Obviously we've got two other guests on the show today. So if we could start with you, Dieuwke, if you could, you work quite closely with Semra as well. You know, what's your background and what you up to at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm Dieuwke van Buren. I worked 7 years to build up Startup Hub Amsterdam in the west of Amsterdam, and that was a roller coaster. It was really fun to build something out of nothing. But after 7 years, it was time to do something with all the things that I have seen there about entrepreneurship, about women in tech. And that's why I decided to join We Rise. And We Rise is a program that empowers women in tech and entrepreneurship. Yeah. And we want to work with startups, government, and corporations to help to move the needle actually on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So yeah, that's very closely that we also work with Semra. So we're really happy about that. And now what we see that we already do a couple of programs about coding, about data engineering, and we just start like a pre-accelerator with 10 future female entrepreneurs. So yeah, it's really getting started right now.
Yeah, and that is certainly something we'll come straight back to about the accelerator program. I'm really keen to hear a little bit more on that. But I know both of you guys have been working very closely at the moment with Iffat. So Iffat, tell us a little bit about what you're up to and how you've worked with Dieuwke and Semra as well.
Thank you, Will. So yeah, I'm Iffat Rose Gill, and I'm the founder of Code to Change, which is an organization working to reskill and upskill women, so that we can move the needle on the number of women who are in the tech sector. I've been working on the project for on the topic itself, I've been working on it for more than 20 years, being a women's rights activist, and I've worked on the topic globally. However, in the Netherlands ecosystem, I've been working for the last 7 years together with stakeholders from both private and public sector, so that we can make the ecosystem a bit more inclusive. So that's in a nutshell what we do. We're working together with the We Rise and Dieuwke and Semra basically to train more women in the emerging tech like AI and machine learning. But we'll talk more about that, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. And to begin with, then there's an interesting thing you mentioned that you've worked in it with for over, I think you said 20 years now, trying to change things. How do you think, Iffat, things have changed over the last 20 years? You know, has there been, is it better now, is what I'm saying? How has it changed over the last 20 years for you?
Right. So I worked, as I said, I worked internationally, so in different geographical locations, and I started my work in Asia, Pakistan to be more precise. And what I noticed was that when we were starting out, we still had to work on the awareness part, the awareness raising part, like these are our rights and this is what needs to be worked on. Now women are, today they are more aware, and they were always powerful, I believe, but now they're more vocal about the space that they want or the goals that they want to reach. And that is a huge change that I see during my journey, that they are, they know this is their right, and they're now fighting to make their place, both at workplace or in the society in general. So that's promising. We're still not where we need to be. There's still an estimate that to achieve gender equality, it's going to take us 175 years, given the pace of things now. But we're moving forward, and that's very positive and hopeful for people like me.
Yeah, I mean, that's mind-blowing, 175 years. It shocks me. I don't know if that's kind of part of the problem, that there's an ignorance, maybe, that for me, I'm like, you know, we've got 3 of you on the show today who are very, very powerful women, and doing great things. And you know, I'm sat here and I think, you know, I work with female founders. I work quite closely with quite a few CTOs who obviously are females, and they're amazing and they do amazing work. And I've celebrated it on LinkedIn before. But to think 175 years, you know, we're off from that, it is absolutely shocking. And that's why it's so important we raise this awareness. Now, obviously, it's a global thing, you know, these issues, and you mentioned where you started there. But Dieuwke, you know, it's in Amsterdam as well, you know, and that's where obviously we're talking about today, and where we're based and where we work. You know, what's changed over the last few years from your perspective as well?
Yeah, I think what Iffat said, like the awareness has changed, definitely, but for a certain amount of women. So I see like the early adapters, okay, they are knowing tech is important, they know it, but still a lot of like young women are saying, no, tech is not something for me, because they don't know what tech is about, like that you can help to solve the waiting list of hospitals, for example, with those skills. And that's a fair point. Like everyone wants to work at Instagram, for example, but no one wants to work in tech. And I think we need to to get those women visible who are already working in this like industry, let them know more about, okay, what are you going to do if you're going to work in tech? And I think, of course, in the end, tech is the future. So everyone is going to work in tech, but they are not aware of that yet. And I think also the schools and the universities and even high schools and then primary schools are still a bit behind. So it's good that we are now like joined forces and we are like really on it. But still we need to have that impact more, to work and collaborate more together instead of like separately.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it has to be everyone involved in this. It can't just be a minority kind of pushing this. And that's where the work of local governments and global governments really have to kind of encourage this. And Semra, if you could maybe touch on that, the work at StartupAmsterdam, how you guys are really helping and lead the way and encourage that. What have you found and how are you helping kind of raise that awareness at the moment?
Yeah, so what we saw that basically there's a lack of a diverse talent when working at corporates who work with tech, for example, or SMEs even. But on the other hand, they are not the ones that actually trying to make the change. So that's where we saw that the government should play a big role in, and that's why we started to make this program really big. But you know, also when I started this project, it was just a small budget, and then I saw, okay, but this is not the impact that we need to create in the city. And that's how I did my best to find more resources to actually, as we did, build a female hub.
Yeah,
we could join forces because it was very scattered. So there are different organizations doing the same things or almost the same things, but for the same goal.
yeah.
And we wanted to combine them so that they could create more impact, and also now to make it more easy to get bigger companies on our side as well. Sometimes you need to, as a government, take the first steps. And this is definitely a topic, diversity and inclusion. Like, I'm working on this topic for, I think, also around 20 years.
Wow.
On the one hand, you can be really sad about it, which I was at a certain point in my life. Like, oh my God, this is never going to change. But on the other hand, I have 2 little daughters now. And if we don't do it, then we won't create the world that we want for our children, for the next generations.
Yeah, and you don't need to really explain any more than that. That's
Exactly.
enough of an incentive for anyone out there to encourage them to help raise awareness and improve the way things are. You mentioned there that, you know, the government have helped a lot of people, and a lot of people are working to do things, but separately. How have you tried to bring people together, and not just startups as well, what we mentioned there, but also the wider ecosystem, you know, the larger companies out there at the moment who are based in Amsterdam, many of them, or based across the Netherlands, you know, because of how big it is with tech. How have you managed to bring them into the equation at the moment?
Well, we're definitely still working on it, but for us as a government, it's easy to gain access to them. Yeah. Because most of the times we have helped them if they came to Amsterdam from other countries. So we have helped them, and now we can ask the question. So, okay, so how is it with your diversity and inclusion employment in your company? And so we have this project, let's do it together. So in a way, as a government, we have built credits, if I may say it like that. Yeah. On the one hand, and on the other hand, because we already supported a lot of organizations through subsidies, etc., to do their events or their classes, etc., we already have that relationship. So it's easier for us from that position to tell them, okay, but we have this idea and we need you to work together in order to create more impact. Yeah. So it wasn't, I mean, on the one hand, it was a challenge. But on the other hand, in the end, I think it worked out for the best. And we're still, of course, it's work in progress, especially when it comes to reaching out to corporates. But I have a very positive hope for it.
Yeah. And Iffat, how have you found that has changed over the last few years? And the work with Startup Amsterdam, how have you found they've kind of helped with bringing in the larger ecosystem into helping females kind of and others and other you know, other minorities into tech? Right.
The short answer would be by going around a lot of red tape. But kudos to people like Semra who actually pushed for this, so that we don't just, you know, become brand ambassadors and we just do the lip service, but we actually take action. It was a long journey to get here. When I started working in Amsterdam, Netherlands, back in 2014-15, I remember very well going to speak to public officials, you know, bureaucrats, and I remember that this whole thing falling on, you know, deaf ears. Like, they had no clue about what I was talking about why it is so important that we that we look at the digital sector as the key provider for jobs, right? It is estimated that, well, this estimate has been going around for a long time, that every job, close to 90% of the jobs, they're going to require some sort of digital skills, which also means that the bulk of the employment opportunities are provided by the tech sector. And given the ratio of women, we don't have the exact number from the Netherlands. There's still a debate around it, but it's low. To help them or to make them understand initially, it just didn't happen. It took us years and years of work, and together with a lot of organizations who were working on it, and mind you, they're not too many, they're far and few, who were actually making the noise about the topic, about why we need to focus on the economic empowerment of women. We need to address the gender pay gap, so that we can achieve gender equality in a shorter time. And I'm sorry, I have to correct myself here. According to the World Economic Forum, it says it's going to take 135 years to achieve gender equality. And of course, the setback due to the pandemic is great. It's added 36 more years to that. So it's still alarming for us. However, now both the national government and the local governments, they have a focus on it. I can see it. And that part is promising. That we're still figuring it out, I would say, both as activists, as organizations, as government, as the ecosystem, also the corporate sector. However, now they do want to do the right thing, and they are finally getting ready to take action. A lot of the times there is the intention, however, the actual steps that they take may not match the results that they're trying to achieve, but I still think this is positive, but because we're at least finally doing something about it.
Yeah. And Dieuwke, I saw you nodding your head there, and nodding away for people who can't see this, but you're obviously really passionate. All three of you, I can see how passionate you are about this topic, and of course I completely agree. And you know, you touched on there, Iffat, the pandemic, and how it kind of created that setback. Dieuwke, if you could maybe expand on that a little bit more, and how that has affected things in terms of, you know, making you know, Amsterdam in particular more inclusive, and the setback for females as well.
Yeah, I think maybe it's also due to the pandemic that the women are noticing more that they are in this kind of role, because that's also for me, when I started working, I always thought, if you work hard, you will come there. That's fine. Yeah. But now I'm also having like 2 young kids, and I see that the roles and the pattern that you are going into, that you really need to fight for it to not like get that setback. And I have also a boyfriend who is working, but if he leaves his work because my son is sick or something, then his boss say, but your wife is able to go. She's in Amsterdam. Mm-hmm. So it's still, I think it's more about awareness, about acting on it. And I think women now during all these like numbers and more like getting aware of it and think like, okay, we need to fight for it, because in other ways it's never gonna like be better than this. And of course you have also women, and that's the thing where we have to work on. Like 20, 25, 30% of the women think, yeah, we need to work on this. And there's still a lot to do. Like people think like, yeah, it's fine, I'm okay. And yeah, I think that's still the thing. And even in Amsterdam, and I think in Amsterdam, we are a little bit more innovative than the rest of the Netherlands already, like a little bit further in this case. But still, if you see that women not have each other's back, for example, that's something what I just see around now. And also when building this RISE thing, like, just like, I don't know, everyone is doing it on a different way, but please like support each other. Like when you're on stage, just like promote another women, and that we really have to work on that visibility together and like have each other's back. And that's definitely a culture thing of women, I guess. I don't know. It's weird. I just experience every time.
Can I just step in here?
Yeah, of course.
Yes, this is a very important observation that we also saw in the ecosystem, that we instead of trying to collaborate, we do, the element of competition comes in. And I never blame the women for it, honestly. I think this phenomena or stereotype, no, it happens. It's not just a stereotype, but it comes from the mindset of scarcity. So we feel that the resources that exist for this purpose are really scarce, and if we could help them think from the mindset of abundance and promote this culture of collaborating and supporting each other, I think that could really help. But it is really deeply embedded in the patriarchal systems that we're all inheriting from centuries, and which kind of pits women against each other, or female-led initiatives against each other. And yeah, we need to find a way to solve that.
Yeah.
Like also it's about hosting a bigger table. There's not one spot for one woman at like if you have like a board of 6, that there's only one spot for one woman. Like we host a bigger table, and I think that's important to say also. There's more space than only one organization or only one woman.
Yeah, and that was actually something I was just about to touch on, because I was going to say, do you think people women in particular, are fighting against each other for, like you said, that one spot? Why does it have to be that? Why can't it be one man like me on this podcast today? Why can't you guys, control the table in many aspects? There's no reason for that. It should be about skill, ability, passion, and all the above, and many, many more traits. We could go on, but that doesn't have to be a man. It could be a woman, it could be anyone, and I think that's what's important, and what we need to really kind of make people aware of. And like you say, don't pit women against women, pit women against men. And if the women are better, then they should be better, and they should succeed. So I think that's the idea. And I think, in fact, the first time I actually came,
Will wants war.
Maybe a little bit. No. The first time I actually came across yourself, was I did a post celebrating, and I came across it online, and it was celebrating superhero women in tech. And I did a post celebrating, these are all the amazing women who are doing great things in tech. And put it out there, and you know what, it's probably one of the best posts I've ever done in terms of the responses on it, and that kind of made it aware to me that people out there are celebrating this and do want to get behind it. It's just not wide enough yet, and we're not quite there, and I think that will improve. But there's a difference between, and I'll just move on to this slightly, there's a difference between diversity and inclusion. And that's where we're at the moment. And for people out there, Semra, who think, well, it's one of the same. Well, there's 180 nationalities in Amsterdam at the moment. I think we remember talking about that in the past. And, why is it that, it's a very, very diverse culture? There's a lot going on, across women, men, different races, different people, different ages. It's very diverse, the culture there, but it's not necessarily inclusive, is it? So could you just maybe explain that to the audience out there, what the difference is in that, and let's raise awareness on that.
Yeah, thank you, Will, for asking that question, because I think there's a lot of discrepancy in what people think, what the words mean.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we have diversity. Yes, we have diversity in Amsterdam, but it doesn't mean that we are all very inclusive. If there's inclusion, then being different is completely okay in a whole. So you feel accepted and you feel that you belong. And that feeling of belonging, that's where inclusion comes in. What we see in practice that, for example, in boardrooms, when a woman steps in or somebody with another color steps in, then they claim to be inclusive because they accepted somebody who's different in many ways. But then that person needs to adapt to the rules of the group. And then with rules, I don't mean, of course, you have certain criteria, for example, for a certain board. But with rules, I mean the ones that are not spoken of. I don't know how you say that in English, but the norms and the values. So then you need to act like the majority. And the moment that you have to act like the majority, then the whole inclusion is gone.
Yeah.
And what we see is that a lot of companies, organizations say that they are very diverse and inclusive. Yes, they are diverse, but they're not inclusive at all, because a lot of the people who are different or diverse with another background or female, etc., other genders, they don't feel like they belong, that they're not seen and heard. And that's a very important aspect. If we don't change that narrative, then you won't get any equality in the end, and the equity will be the same as it is right now. Yeah. So the feeling of scarcity is not that weird in that sense. The numbers speak for it. It's very normal that a lot of people with diverse backgrounds, with other genders, from marginalized groups, feel that scarcity and act upon it because the numbers are there. Yeah. It's still a fact that there's only one female director or a director with another background on certain spots. Yeah. I remember, as an example, at our office at the City of Amsterdam, when I worked at the Department of Diversity and Inclusion, it was really fun because it was one of the most diverse teams I've ever worked in. Everybody was from a different background, gender, etc., everything. So I worked in that environment, and then I have another background as well. And I saw this guy in a meeting at another spot. We were in the co-working space, and he was combing his beard. I was like, what the hell is this guy doing? This is not normal. You shouldn't do this in an office space. He was just having the meeting, and then combing his beard. So I had a judgment about that. Yeah. So, and that's also, I think, the tricky part of the whole discussion. How much is he supposed to be himself in a meeting? So what are the rules about having a meeting? Yeah. According to whom, Yeah. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, we live in a Dutch individualized society where it's very normal that big business deals or projects are divided during the Friday afternoon drinks. Yeah. But if you have a Muslim background, yeah, and you don't drink alcohol, for example, yeah, then you, most of the times either don't go to these drinks or don't realize that this is the case, yeah, which I saw with my colleagues. They didn't know that this is Dutch culture, that a lot of environments do this, a lot of organizations and companies do this. Yeah. We had to talk about it, and then the topic came onto the table. Okay. So those are also things like, can we then maybe organize different kinds of gatherings instead of only the Friday afternoon drinks? Yeah. In order for everyone to feel welcome. Okay. So how do you change that though? How do you change the way an established company, for example? I mean, how do you change the way that's done? Is there a way? Does anyone have any ideas on what you may be seeing in the market and how that's done? And that's kind of an open question, that one, because I'm sure you've all got kind of some ideas on how to change things. Maybe Dieuwke, we start with you on that one, because I've got to really make sure I navigate that. But yeah, so you don't all speak at once. But yeah. Do you think it can be changed?
Yes, I think everyone needs to be involved. So it's not only the one who is like the minority who has to say like, we have to do this, yeah, but it's like a team effort. And also sometimes just probably a CEO effort, like, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to handle this, and I don't tolerate any other more like behavior in this. And I think that's the most important thing, because now what you see a lot is like, oh no, I don't have anything with DEI. No, that's one is working on that team. And I think DEI has to be like in your DNA in the end, and everyone has like a certain example, or maybe a sister or a mother, or I don't know, some experience who are working on this. And I think everyone needs to work on it, and not only one individual to get like, oh, are you going to think of other like gatherings that everyone feels involved? No, just together, a team effort. I think that's the most important thing. Yeah.
Iffat, for yourself, do you have anything to add to that?
Of course, I agree with Dieuwke on that. The burden of solving it shouldn't fall on the person who's in minority in that company. We've had, when we started our Women in Tech community for our boot camps, we would get a lot of these stories from these women in tech who were like the only female in the engineering team, and the manager would come to them and say, you are a woman, tell us, how can we solve this? And imagine the immense pressure that it puts on that one person who's there to do, their daily job. They're not there to solve the company's issue with inclusion and diversity. And that was really heavy. They would come to us and ask us, okay, how do we solve this? How do we navigate this? I think it, like Dieuwke said, it has to come from top. Like, okay, this jargon about, oh, you don't fit in the company culture, that whatever that culture is, I think the companies need to define that. What do they consider as the company culture? And the values of diversity and inclusion needs to be incorporated in those values, and then it has to trickle down at every single level, especially when they are recruiting, because that's where a lot of the problems exist. It is known in the industry that they just kind of brush aside different looking CVs, for example, and then this is for both the gender and for ethnicities, for example. It's true for all the minority groups. They simply just, because of the stereotypes, they just don't consider them. So it really needs to come from top down. And what the companies need to do is a thorough diagnostics of what and how their company is doing wrong, and why they are not attracting the right diverse talent that they are so inclined to hire, but have not put policies in place to actually make it more welcoming. I mean, if you go and interview their employees who are from a minority background or underrepresented background, you will hear the actual realities of what goes on in that company. And I think that is something they need to look into first in order to make a strategy on how to actually start improving it.
Yeah. And one thing, I'm glad you kind of brought us onto that, because obviously, it's not about recruitment, this podcast, and it never will be, but it's obviously where I work, and that's my base. Now, one thing I'm seeing a lot more of from a few clients is the anonymous CV. So here's a CV. Do you want to interview this person? No contact details on, no names. It is simply a profile of a good JavaScript developer. Do you want to hire he, she, her, them? Have a look at it. And it seems to be working. It seems to be helping, I think, with that initial stereotype you mentioned there, where it's like, oh, no, maybe not for us. But there's no real reason. Are these better candidates in the process? Well, I don't agree. So if I took the name off, would you interview this person? And usually the answer kind of changes. Do you think that's got a possibility now moving forward? Do you think that's a good idea to go there, from your point of view?
Yes, definitely. Some companies have been trying to work with that, and it has worked really well for them, because then they hire based on the skill and the talent, and not based on whatever backgrounds that that makes them different from the others that are in majority in that company. However, I think it doesn't just stop there, because then do we know that once this person ends up in that company, then what happens, right? Is the company or the employee, the other employees who they're going to be working with, are they ready to make that person welcome? Or a lot of the times we heard that if women get hired based on their talent, they still get comments like, oh, you must be a diversity hire or something like that. And then again, they still don't feel that they belong there, right? And what that happens is it creates a toxic environment for them within their work, and it of course stops their growth, because they're not going to be considered for promotion, and their career journey is going to be affected by that hugely. So it's not just one step that they need to take. They really need to, it's a multi-layered problem. I always say this. So they really need to look at all the levels and all the processes, so that they can really, put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah. I mean, we spend a lot of money in tech in particular on learning and development. for engineers, for product owners, for people in the business. Do you think there's more room that maybe there should be a bigger budget, Dieuwke, for people who, you know, for DI, you know, for training on that, for awareness on that? Do you think there should be courses within the companies? Because yes, we can get these people hired by doing it anonymously and getting them in the company, but as Iffat's just said, that's not solving the issue completely. Do you think maybe more spend should be put into diversity and inclusion and training and awareness on that?
Yeah, I think definitely, but then also look at it individually and also have like avoid the tokenism, so that someone is not like feeling welcome. Also to do the opposite, so let other women also be like on stage, get them visible, make them a personal branding. So really work on everyone's personal efforts, so not only just like you see a lot of like in-company bias trainings, but that's already biased on beforehand. So I think it's good that you attract like talent or programs from outside, get them inside, maybe different groups together, different teams together, to create also a safety environment, because now for a safe environment, because now you see certain teams together already have some kind of culture. That's the same thing when I was in class in high school, like you already have your spot in there. So you are still positioning and you want to have that position. So I think it's good to do it like all company over, but also outside of the company, just like real stories, real experience from people who are really expert on it or experienced on it, because that's real stories will help. Like, give them like something to think about, and not only, oh yeah, I have to do it because it's important, for example. I don't know, just like they have to feel it, like they have to feel it in their DNA. So I think it's important to have like attract programs outside from other organizations, and to hustle teams together to do this kind of programs.
Yeah, and I mean, conferences, meetups, tech groups, it's huge across the Netherlands. Maybe there's a space then for more stuff, not just on, let's talk about the new technology, let's talk about diversity, inclusion.
That's also like, sorry to interrupt you, but that's also a culture thing, because the tech groups and everything, that's also a thing. Like if you are women in tech, like now the tech is also really a homogene culture. It's all like a bit nerdy. Everyone has like their own projects outside of tech. If you are getting hired, they're asking like, what kind of projects do you more? And if you say like, oh yeah, I like to hang out with my friends or go to the movies, it's a different thing. Then you're not qualified enough because you're not that techy. And that's also a thing that the tech world has to work on. That's there are also flexible contracts, for example, so less hours than 48 hours a week, or that it's not that you don't have your like hobby or passion about tech. No, you just like working in tech and you want to work in it, and not having a whole coding bootcamp during the weekend because you have other things to do, for example. And I think that's also a transformation that the tech world and the culture needs to make.
Yeah, and you know what, I see that a lot, and I've hired for companies over my time, you know, who have said, yeah, we need people who are tech through and through. You know, they go home and work on tech every day, and that'll make them a better developer. It's not necessarily the case. And you mentioned culture. They say they'll fit into the culture. There's no reason why. I mean, we work in recruitment and we work some crazy hours. But what I found is that's how I was brought up to do that at my age. The new guys, the juniors, just hired some people into the team, you know, they can go home at 5 o'clock. It's fine. They get their work done. They're doing just as well as me, but my kind of culture tells me that I've got to work until 8 o'clock at night, or 24/7, as I always say. So, you know, it's got to change, and I think it will, as the next generation come through, and that's not just in tech and recruitment, but across various different industries. You know, it will change, but like you say, and like we've touched on, you know, it takes time. There's also incentives. I mean, we've talked about the hiring process now. We talked about how we can change cultures, but Semra, there are incentives as well to diversify and be more inclusive from government, such as, I know the 30% tax ruling is one to help people and relocate people. But do you think it's enough from your point of view to incentivize to companies to hire more diversely?
No, I don't think that it's enough, and we're still very in the start. I think the US does it better than we do.
Okay.
They're more strict in, for example, if they have projects where you can sign into, then one of the project writers needs to be from another background, or at least from a marginalized group, which I think is a very, very good one. We're taking steps, at least as a city of Amsterdam. I don't know how it is on a national level. But you know, the thing is that you were just mentioning about, I hope that this system will change in a way that you feel that there's more space to be different or more authentic as you would want to be. And I truly believe that it starts with yourself. As I say in my WhatsApp, be the change you want to see in the world. That's really what I learned. So the moment that I wasn't scared of losing my job anymore, because that's the underlying thing, then I started to open my mouth.
Yeah.
And then I started to really be myself and be my authentic self. And what I saw then is that I was more accepted than I thought in the first place, than I was scared of in the first place. So I try to tell that to a lot of young people when I get the chance. I have had many moments at the city of Amsterdam, and I tell that to the city of Amsterdam, where I didn't feel like I belonged. And believe me, I'm someone with a Muslim background who drinks alcohol, who knows the drill. And, you know, I did everything to be accepted, but still, there are still in interviews, etc., where my other background was put upon my face, right, was thrown in my face. And the judgment that I made then for myself is, okay, Semra, are you walking away right now, or are you going to step in and then try to make the change? And the last one, I think, is the best one to do, because that's, again, feeling responsible for others than only yourself or your own ego, that at that moment feels very small. Mm. And I think that's the most important thing. And also, like, I do not believe that it's CEO level that needs to be changed, because there you see that most of the people would agree. Yeah. But the middle management is the biggest challenge. My husband is also a recruiter, and the discussions and the debates that he has as examples with managers that do not want to hire certain people because they think that person doesn't fit the team culture. Yeah. It has everything to do with exclusion, discrimination, etc. Yeah. And I'm not telling that these people are bad persons, but they just like to see people who look like them. Yeah. Think like them. And that's very human. And we need to embrace that that's very human. And if we accept and embrace that, instead of feeling attacked that we are the racists, etc., then we can start to make steps to make that change. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're quite right. It's a battle. I think Iffat mentioned war before, and it is in many ways a war on kind of past, and making a change towards that, towards a better future for everyone as well. It's not just a better, if we can include people more, it will better everyone. It will make everyone's lives better, not just the minority, the minorities out there. So I think it's really important that we do kind of change people's minds and help them learn new things and open their minds. But also, there's various ways to do that. We've touched on some of them. But if you're a young person now, maybe a young female, for relevance, and you mentioned not being scared of maybe losing your job, what kind of advice would you three give them? And if we start with you, Semra, following on from that.
It's, I think, most important to stay true to yourself. Yeah. Really, to stay true to yourself and trust that that's okay, that's good enough. Good.
Good advice. Yeah, very good. Dieuwke, what about yourself? Is there anything you'd kind of say to someone out there, maybe listening to this now?
Yeah, I would say that you also have to listen to other people, because for a long time I didn't see the problem, because I was not facing it that much, because maybe my background is just like Dutch, and I'm Dutch culture and everything. So I think it's also really good to look into your environment, listen to your environment, and listen to the experience they have. to like, to be inclusive.
Yeah, and Iffat, yourself?
Right. I think it kind of is similar to what Semra said, staying true to yourself. I was the first woman in my family to get a university degree and then starting my own organization, something which I had no role models around me to look up to on problem solving. So if you are thinking of doing something which is out of the ordinary, and off the beaten path, so to say, go for it and make sure that you find a mentor. It is possible now. You find a mentor. If it's female, it's always the best, of course, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Just find a mentor, go and talk to them, and do what you're passionate about.
I think it's more about also what Iffat was saying, like creating role models. And because there are some amazing founders who are female, and I think look for someone who you can relate to, be a role model. Also, if you are a founder, be a role model, or if you work in tech, or be a role model for someone else. I think that's important because you can't be what you can see. So visibility is key.
Yeah. And hopefully this podcast, many other things, what you guys are doing. I know you're all working very closely at the moment, but thank you for coming on the show. I think it's been really, really insightful having all of you on. But I'm conscious, you're very, very busy women, so we'll let you get back to your daily lives. But thank you very much for coming on the show, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure having you all.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Will. Thank you.
No problem.